there, and welcome to the next part of my platform tutorial video series. This is part 4. We're going to actually have a win condition, and we might even add in a menu at the start. So what we've got so far is we've got this this trigger. You'll notice here this box collider trigger here is the die script on it. So what I'm going to do just for fun right now is I'm just going to make this quite a bit bigger and just stick it across the bottom so that if we fall off we die. But we're going to add in another one for the win trigger, and we're just going to put it right here just now. So I'm going to click on game object, 3D object and cube, and just as I did before, I'm just going to use vertex snap just to snap it into position and move it across a little bit. It's probably a good idea, just so that I can see this, that we make this one a different color. So I'm going to create a new material inside my materials folder, and I'm going to call it gold, and just change it to something that looks a bit like gold. A yellowy color will be fine, and just take that onto that so we can see the difference. So this is going to be my win trigger. So real simple to do this. There's a couple of steps, but we'll get around to it. So inside of my scripts, we're going to create ourselves a new C# script, and we're just going to call this nice and simple win, and just open this up inside Visual Studio and get started with the programming. So as this opens up, all the win trigger really needs to do is, like before, we need to be able to catch the on trigger enter event. So I'm going to get rid of these just now. All I have is if I start typing in on trigger enter, and that will give us the basic method to overwrite. So the on trigger enter, this will fire if something walks into it, and all we want to do is be able to use the scene manager to load the next scene. So I'm going to do the using Unity Engine .scene management up here, and actually I don't need those just now. It's a pretty simple script. So we're going to use the scene manager to load the next scene. Now what I'm going to do, just to make this nice and reusable, is I'm going to make a public string which is going to be level to load, and we're going to make this equal to a blank string just now. So this level to load, we're going to load if we hit the trigger. So in order to do that, we just do scene manager dot load scene, and then we can pass into it the actual string that we want to do. So we're going to pass in level to load. So it's as simple as that. We save that code, jump back to here. By doing it this way, this makes the code really reusable, because we can drag it onto different scenes and be able to change that that level to load, and it will just work. So I've got this gold cube. I'm going to rename that, actually. I'm going to rename that as win portal, and then make sure we drag the win script onto it. So important thing here, we have a collider, but we need to make sure that this collider is a trigger so that the on trigger enter is fired when we do this. Now we could test it all if we want to with some debug messages, but you can trust me, so we've done it in one of the last videos. What we need to do though is make sure that the build settings have all the scenes that we want. So right now we've only got this one scene, and it's really named badly, so I'm just going to rename this scene. I'm going to call this level 1, and then what we're going to do is just make a new one. So in order to make a new one, I'm just going to duplicate this one. I'm going to say save as, and inside of the scenes I'm going to save this as level 2. That way I have two scenes that look exactly the same, and just so we can see the difference, I'll maybe make that a bit lower down and save that scene. So this one's lower down inside of level 2, and you can tell which scene you're on by the top up here. So we're on level 2 right now. If I double click level 1, you see it is slightly different. So the build settings, if I go back to build settings again, we need to drag both of these scenes in. So level 1 is going to be first and level 2 is going to be second. And they need to be in this here, in this build settings, in order for us to be able to find them inside of the project. So if I jump to level 1 and I look at my Win portal, you'll see that there's a level to load if we touch this, and I'm just going to make sure I type in level 2 exactly as I've named it inside of the scenes. So if I say level 2, then when we touch this we should jump to level 2. So let's just test to make sure that it does work. So if I hit play, we'll drop to the ground, and there we go, we're on level 2. You can see this is slightly lower. So the wind trigger is actually a very easy thing to do, and now that it's really flexible, we're able to change this inside of the inside of any scene to point to the scene that we want to jump to. The next probably tidy up thing that we should do is I'm just going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call this Prefabs. And we're going to turn some of these things into prefabs so that we can reuse them as much as we want. So we can, inside of this prefabs folder, I'm going to take the platform and put it in there. So it's just that simple platform. I'm going to take the player, I'm also going to put him in here, and I'm going to take the Win portal and put it there. And this was the die trigger, so I'm just going to call this die trigger, and put this in here as well. So we've got a fair few things. The main camera and directional light are the defaults when you load a scene anyway, so if you wanted to, you could completely recreate all of the scene from things that you have in here. So just by using these things alone, you should be able to have a fairly cool challenging platform game where you're able to move across platforms to get to the wind trigger, and you could put any number of meshes that you want as the obstacles to that would kill the player when they hit them. The next video in the series we're going to do a really simple spawn points so that we can have the spawn manager, the player manager, pass through certain spawn points, and then rather than go all the way back to the beginning at this which it would do right now, is we're going to set the new spawn points. So then we'll maybe look at some of the other stuff and I'll take some suggestions. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Welcome, join me for the next one. We'll do spawn points.